When I woke up in the morning, I instinctively snuggled into the man's arms. "Honey, hold me." He stiffened instantly. "Miss Gray, please mind your behavior." That was when I remembered, Johnson Price had lost his memory. He'd forgotten that we'd already been married for 3 years. Just as my heart was sinking, a flurry of bullet comments suddenly popped up before my eyes. Second male lead, stop pretending. You know damn well how high that tent is. LMAO, everyone knows how hard you worked to marry the female lead. You've been secretly in love with her for years. Say something already. Girl, please teach this fake gentleman a lesson. Snapping out of it, I looked at Johnson and smiled. Sorry. Wrong person. He stared blankly for a moment. What do you mean? I bent down and pulled a contract from the nightstand. It clearly stated that during our marriage of convenience, we were not to interfere in each other's lives. Every clause pointed to one truth: we were only husband and wife on paper. He held the contract in silence, his expression stormy. Even if you've lost your memory, it doesn't change the fact that we're strangers. With that, I got out of bed and walked away. Strangers? Then what have you two been doing every night? Hate sex. Totally unfamiliar, just the type of strangers who kiss until their mouths are swollen. Second male lead is already searching her phone history for a secret second husband. LMAO. The barrage of bullet comments made my cheeks flush. Johnson and I had a marriage then love story. 3 years ago, I'd just broken up with my childhood sweetheart and was completely disillusioned with love. When my family suggested a political marriage, I agreed. Johnson was the most suitable candidate. He even proposed clear boundaries from the start, promising not to interfere in my personal life. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. And honestly, I had no complaints. Even after we married, he always respected my wishes. We slept in separate rooms for 2 full years. Until one business trip, when we got caught in an earthquake. A chunk of debris struck my forehead and knocked me out cold. When I woke up in the hospital, Johnson was gripping my hand tightly, eyes bloodshot with exhaustion and worry. His voice was hoarse as he repeated over and over, "I'm sorry. I didn't protect you." That desperate, stifled look in his eyes, as if losing me would break him, made my heart tremble. Suddenly, being married didn't seem so bad. After that, we slowly started to get to know each other. To our surprise, we clicked. Naturally, we became a real couple. Until the accident. Until Johnson's memory loss reset everything. And now these bullet comments were telling me he'd had a crush on me all along? If that were true, he was a damn good actor. Well then, let's see what other surprises he's hiding. We sat silently on opposite ends of the long dining table, finishing breakfast without a word. Even the housekeeper, Auntie Lee, could sense something was off. She kept glancing at us throughout the meal. As we were heading out, she approached me quietly. "Ma'am, aren't you going to help Mr. Price with his tie today?" I cast Johnson a sideways look. Didn't he already do it himself? Just as I said that, Johnson calmly reached up and tugged his neatly tied bow loose. Not very good at it. Didn't tie it properly. OMG, he really just shot himself in the foot. Even with memory loss, still looking for ways to get close. You're too in love, my guy. Under my calm gaze, he looked away and cleared his throat. Would you mind? I bit back a smile and walked over to fix it for him. Watching his whole body tense up as I leaned in, it was oddly endearing. On impulse, I kissed him lightly on the cheek. His pupils shrank, and he practically stopped breathing. I leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Don't overthink it. Just part of the act." "Right," Johnson murmured. After we stepped out of the house, the bullet comments exploded again. Looks calm, but inside he's a nervous wreck. Second lead, you're a CEO. Why do you look so dumbstruck? FL, just breathing. ML2, absolute seduction. This man is so giddy, he didn't even scold his incompetent manager today. You've been married 3 years, how are you still this pure? Enjoy it while it lasts. The main lead, Matthew, is coming back tonight. Right on cue, a message popped up on my phone, from an unfamiliar number. Natalie, can we meet? Matthew and I had grown up together. Childhood sweethearts from old money families. We were each other's first love. Dating after high school had felt like a natural next step. Even when we went to different universities, we still kept in touch every day. Until I started noticing another girl showing up in his photos. It was a long, painful tug-of-war. I gave everything, and came out shattered. I went from screaming arguments to cold, dead silence. After that mess ended, I got married. He was sent overseas to work for the family business, whether he liked it or not. Now, after all this time, I didn't understand what he thought he could possibly say to me. I blocked the number without hesitation. Too much work had piled up while Johnson was in the hospital. I had to work overtime today. When I got his message, it was already 7:30 p.m. Auntie Lee wants to know if you'll be home for dinner. Short and cold as always. But the bullet comments weren't having it. Please, you're the one who wants to know. How long have you been staring at her chat window? He's been sitting on the sofa like a lonely statue, waiting for her to come home. How is he even more adorable now that he's lost his memory? I hadn't finished the documents yet. So I replied, I won't be coming back for dinner tonight. Tell Auntie Lee not to make my share. Then added another line, you should rest. Don't wait up for me. After all, he was still recovering. Johnson didn't send me another message. By the time I finished work, it was nearly midnight. As I walked out of the office building, I ran into someone I didn't expect. Matthew. He looked up, his gaze murky and unreadable. Natalie. Long time no see. I knew you were busy, so I didn't go up and bother you. I had no intention of catching up. Did you need something? Matthew had matured a lot. He no longer wore his emotions on his sleeve. But his eyes were still locked on my face, making it impossible to ignore him. His Adam's apple bobbed as he spoke. I just wanted to talk. Don't talk, girl. Second male lead is already fuming like a storm cloud. Haha, he came to pick up his wife only to walk in on this scene, he's gonna lose it. Fight. 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 I turned around, Johnson was walking toward us. He calmly took off his coat and draped it over my shoulders, then wrapped one firm arm around my waist in a protective, possessive gesture. I'm here to take you home. An invisible standoff unfolded between them. Their faces remained emotionless, but the tension in their clenched fists said it all. I took the initiative to hook my arm around Johnson's and smiled sweetly. Thanks, honey. Let's go home. Johnson's expression eased slightly. Once we got in the car, I let go of his hand. You can drive now. He glanced at his now empty arm and pressed his lips into a thin line, saying nothing. I'd stared at the computer for too long today, my head was foggy. A yawn slipped out, and tears gathered instinctively at the corners of my eyes. Leaning against the window, I slowly drifted to sleep. I woke up in bed. Johnson wasn't in the room. There wasn't even an indentation on the other side of the mattress. Did he stay up all night? The bullet comments quickly gave me an answer. FL slept like a baby. Meanwhile, second ML was in the study having a full-blown emotional crisis. He saw the tears in her eyes and assumed she cried over the ex, LMAO. Poor guy probably thinks they're getting back together. Honestly, even I'm nervous. Is she gonna ask for a divorce or what? All right. Everyone calm down. I decided to go downstairs and talk to Johnson properly. Auntie Lee told me he'd already left for work. Johnson had been busier than ever lately, leaving early, returning late. Soon, it was Grandpa's birthday banquet. Back at the old family estate, I pulled Johnson aside and hesitated. There's something I need to talk to you about. His lashes fluttered slightly. Grandpa seems to be calling me. I should go. He fled before I could get another word in. Right. Forget it. It could wait. What I didn't expect was to see Matthew there too. After all, our families still kept in touch. He remained polite and composed, making no inappropriate moves. So much time had passed, even my parents didn't object to his presence anymore. At the dinner table, Johnson sat beside me. Matthew sat across. The glances exchanged between them were subtle, but the tension was palpable. Johnson picked up a piece of fish and placed it in my bowl. It's your favorite. Eat more? I gave him face and picked it up with my chopsticks. But as soon as the fishy aroma reached my nose, a wave of nausea surged in my gut. I couldn't hold it in, I retched on the spot. The entire table turned to look at me. My mom's expression shifted from confusion to surprise, then joy. Natalie, are you pregnant? I counted the days. Possibly. Grandpa clapped his hands and beamed. Wonderful. In the midst of everyone's congratulations, Matthew and Johnson locked eyes across the table. Murderous intent radiated from both directions. Second ML lost his memory, he thinks he never touched her. Wait, so both men think the baby belongs to the other? He, now this is going to be fun to watch. The family doctor was called over immediately to arrange a checkup. When I finally held the pregnancy test report in my hands, my whole body felt like it was floating. My gaze dropped to my still flat stomach, lingering there for a long time. Johnson and I had never really used any protection. We just let nature take its course. This baby should have been a moment of pure joy. But of course, it just had to arrive when his father had amnesia. What a cosmic joke. Still giddy, my mom looked around. Where did Johnson run off to on such a big day? The moment she said it, it was like someone flipped a switch. Bullet comments rolled in like a wave. He's in the backyard, throwing hands with the ex. Every punch hits like it's personal, eyes red, fists flying. They're trying to kill each other out there. Honestly, I get it. The ex shows up now and wants the girl back? Disgusting. LMAO, second ML isn't holding back. The ex is shook. Ex, you stole my girl. Second ML, says the guy who cheated first. My mom was about to send a servant to look for him, but I quickly stopped her. No, I'll go. I want to surprise him. When I reached the garden entrance, I bumped right into a stormy-faced Johnson. Out of reflex, I covered my stomach and frowned. Where did you go? He avoided my gaze and looked to the side, conveniently hiding the bruise on his right cheek. Just out for some air. His voice was vague, trying to sound casual. I leaned slightly to peek behind him, and Johnson immediately spun me around by the shoulders. It's windy outside. Not good for you. Let's head back. Wow. He doesn't even call me wife anymore. And now he's speaking in clipped, forward sentences like some brooding teen. What's with the fake aloof act? I shot him a glare and walked off on my own. On the drive home, the car was unusually quiet. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. Johnson went straight into the study and didn't come out all night. I didn't bother with him. If he had the guts, he could hide from me forever. But to my surprise, the next morning he handed me a thick document, a full pregnancy survival guide. It covered everything, from confirming the pregnancy to postpartum care. You stayed up all night, just to make this? Noticing the faint shadows beneath his eyes, I felt a pang of guilt. All the anxiety and disappointment I'd been carrying because of his memory loss, melted away in that moment. He had changed. And yet, he hadn't changed at all. Johnson looked a little awkward. It didn't take that long. Oh really? Who was digging through medical journals until 3 a.m.? Who woke his assistant in the middle of the night to gather 100 pregnancy testimonials? Second ML, I've not slept for my lady. Assistant? I instinctively laid a hand over my belly, my heart softening. I couldn't bring myself to lie to him anymore. Actually. Johnson suddenly clapped a hand over my mouth, his voice hoarse. Don't say it. I'll be a good father. Don't worry, I'll treat this child as my own. FL, I was going to tell you who the real father is. Second ML, I don't need to hear it. Excuse me? I thought of those ridiculous bullet comments. Could he actually believe this baby was Matthew's? My expression turned complicated. He was usually such a smart man. How was he this dumb now? After a moment of silence, I asked, if it's not your child, why are you going this far? And if he was going this far, then maybe those bullet comments were right after all? Maybe he had liked me all along? For once, I was genuinely looking forward to his answer. Johnson's eyelashes fluttered. I held my breath. Then he said, slowly, a divorce would be complicated. It wouldn't be good for either of our families. And the child would be hard to explain. I let out a sharp laugh. So I should thank you for your thoughtful consideration? Johnson replied calmly, it's only right. She literally asked, and he still won't say it. Speak. Use your mouth. He's trembling and still won't confess. Just how scared is he of admitting he's liked her for years? Sir, do you need a therapist? I'm available. She gets back with the ex and suddenly he shuts up. Typical. I suggest she take full advantage of his amnesia to train him properly. Train him? Sure. Why not? I crossed one leg over the other and slowly raked my gaze over Johnson from head to toe. His body instantly tensed. The tips of his ears turned red. Why are you looking at me like that? I smirked. We don't have to get divorced. But I have a condition. He let out a quiet sigh of relief. Even his tone eased. All right, name it. You, I drawled, have to do a striptease for me. Johnson, what? This is what she meant by training. Excuse me? I thought this was a wholesome domestic romance. Aren't they supposed to be a mature married couple? When did it turn into this wild? Yes, well. Johnson had always been the upright, proper type. His suits were always immaculate, his demeanor courteous. Even in bed, he was gentlemanly. Always prioritizing my comfort and consent. It was hard to imagine him ever losing control. But now, I was going to see it for myself. Johnson's body went rigid. Shock and embarrassment swirled in his eyes and lingered far too long. I don't know how, he muttered, teeth clenched. I picked up the thick pregnancy manual he'd stayed up all night making. You can learn. You're a fast learner, right? He couldn't even lift his head to look at me. Can I change the condition? I acted cool and indifferent. Pregnancy hormones make me moody. You'd better keep me happy, or I might change my mind about that no divorce thing. With that, I turned and headed downstairs. He didn't dare meet my eyes even as I walked out the door. Auntie Lee noticed his flustered state and looked even more confused than usual. Ma'am, you're not helping him with his tie again today. I looked at Johnson leisurely. Need my help? With trembling hands, he quickly tied it himself, 3 moves flat. His cheeks were flushed, and he looked completely frazzled. No need. Under Auntie Lee's bewildered gaze, he practically fled the house. Second ML is so shy. FL is so smug. We are so entertained. And to be honest, I was kind of looking forward to it. After news of my pregnancy spread, quite a few high school classmates messaged to congratulate me. Eventually, someone took the chance to organize a reunion. Only people I used to get along well with. I agreed to attend. And of course, I brought Johnson. The private room buzzed with warm conversation. Everyone else drank, I stuck to juice. No one made a fuss. If anything, Johnson was more anxious about my pregnancy than I was. He sat beside me the entire time, offering fruit, peeling shrimp, worried I might get even a little hungry. When dinner was nearly over, he quietly got up to pay the bill. Everyone turned to look at me with teasing smiles. You two are seriously couple goals. We're all jealous. One guy, clearly tipsy and glowing red, chuckled. Right? When you two got married, everyone was shocked. None of us expected you to end up together. But honestly, I noticed President Price had a thing for Natalie way back. My eyes lit up. Now this I wanted to hear. Someone nearby frowned. Really? They weren't even in the same class. How could you tell? The drunk guy grinned smugly. I sat in the back row. Saw everyone who passed by. Every time President Price walked past her, he'd stare like he couldn't tear his eyes away. It was. The door opened. Johnson stepped back in, his eyes zeroing in on the drunk guy. And that look on his face could have frozen lava. The guy faltered, then quickly switched topics with a sheepish laugh. I'm drunk. Don't take it seriously, okay? My fun was cut short right in the middle of the story. I was not amused. Johnson picked up my bag and followed after me with a hint of exasperation. You're pregnant. Don't walk so fast. He's drunk, he added. Don't let his nonsense get to you. It means nothing. I stopped and turned to look at him coolly. You're really that scared people might think you like me? His lashes dropped. He didn't say a word. And just like that, my doubts about the bullet comments came roaring back. He didn't act like someone who had a crush on me. If anything, he seemed eager to distance himself. My chest burned with anger, but my expression remained calm. Relax. I know better than anyone, we're just contract spouses. The rebel in me stirred. The more he refused to speak, the more I wanted him to say it first. Rounding a corner, I ran into Matthew's best friend, Nicholas. His eyes lit up. Natalie. You're here to pick up Matthew? He's drunk and won't stop calling your name. Won't go home unless he sees you. We're all going crazy. Thank God you came. The moment he finished speaking, I clearly felt Johnson's breath behind me grow heavier. Second ML definitely thinks his wife came to meet her ex. His teeth must be grinding right now. If she does go to Matthew now, he'll cry himself to sleep for sure. Quantum entanglement strikes again. How do FL and ML keep running into each other like this? I'm kinda rooting for the ex. Let the second ML burn in a heartbreak arc. Oh Matthew. Your wife is here. I hadn't planned to respond to Nicholas, but the sheer audacity of it disgusted me. Back then, it was him who helped Matthew hide his cheating for so long. Brotherhood at its worst. Johnson's jaw was clenched, his knuckles pale from how tightly he was gripping his fists. I laced my fingers firmly through his. Facing Nicholas, I said evenly, I came with my husband tonight. What does Matthew have to do with anything? If you're going to talk nonsense in front of us, you must not think much of the Gray and Price families. Nicholas's expression stiffened. He forced a sheepish smile through clenched teeth. I just meant we're all old friends. No harm meant. I gave him a cold smile. Friends? That's a stretch. You covered for his lies back then, and now you're here to clean up his mess. You're more like Matthew's loyal little dog. Still, please remind your master. Keep the leash tight. No one likes a mutt that bites. Nicholas's face twisted. Natalie, you. But the icy look Johnson shot him was enough to shut him up instantly. Don't get me wrong, I said slowly. No matter how things are between us privately, we're supposed to appear civilized in public. It's part of the agreement. Johnson gave a small grunt of acknowledgement. I looked down at our tightly clasped hands. You can let go now. Instead, he held on even tighter and glanced toward a group of classmates getting ready to leave. I thought we're supposed to act like a loving couple in front of others. Look who just learned how to be clever. It's just holding hands. You literally have a baby together. Smile through it, second ML. He was just thunderclouds a second ago, now he's sunshine. Surely by now he knows the baby isn't Matthew's. She looks disgusted just hearing his name. The next second, Johnson casually asked, so, you really don't have feelings for Matthew anymore? I raised a brow. Would I be standing here if I did? His shoulders eased just slightly, but his gaze dropped to my stomach. I chuckled. I never said this baby had anything to do with Matthew. That shut him up. He stayed silent for a long while, carefully choosing his next words. Then, whose baby is it? I lowered my eyes and gently stroked my belly, voice soft but vague. Don't worry about it. I just really like the father. Johnson. Don't worry about it? Bro is losing his mind behind that poker face. He already DM'd his assistant like, find the father. Tonight. He's already planning where to bury the guy. He just came back from TikTok Academy, got a new toy ready for FL tonight. I nearly burst out laughing. Was Johnson really willing to go that far? Almost as if to prove the bullet comments right, he disappeared into the walk-in closet for the entire night. I waited on the bed, went from curious to sleepy. Finally, he emerged. Before I could get a proper look at him, he slipped a silk ribbon over my eyes. I caught a flash of bare chest, firm muscles barely concealed by an open collar, and the gleam of a silver chain resting on his clavicle. He still had that cold, buttoned-up demeanor. But now, with that barely there outfit, the contrast was intoxicating. It was like watching a noble flower fall into sin. My breath hitched. How am I supposed to see anything if you blindfold me? His voice was steady. I've done my homework. This kind of thing takes gradual exposure. He took my hand and placed it on his burning skin. After all this time, I knew every inch of his body by touch. My fingers glided slowly, and every time I brushed against a sensitive spot, he tensed like a drawn bow. When I reached his waist, his breathing turned ragged. He grabbed my wrist, his voice trembling. Wait. But his next words were swallowed in a kiss. Tentative. Uncertain. A little clumsy. Someone stop the pregnant woman from watching this. I'll stop her in a minute. Let me finish watching first. Damn. Second ML really had this in him? No wonder the ex didn't stand a chance. Where's the morality? Where's the video? DM me if you have the clip. Screw the DM, live stream this. I'll sell my landlord's house just to send y'all money. Wait, what the hell? It cut to black. I saw nothing. Honestly, thank God it cut to black. Otherwise I might have died of embarrassment. His body temperature kept rising. I knew I had to stop him before this went too far. After I was thoroughly satisfied, I shoved him away. Who said you could kiss me? He paused, then replied in a hoarse voice, you kissed me first. Okay, yes, I had kissed him in front of Auntie Lee that one time. But that was for show. It doesn't count. So, he tilted his head, you're saying I can kiss you, as long as it's in front of other people? This time, I was the one speechless. When did Johnson become such a menace? From that day on, he kept a tight watch on me. During the day, he'd use my hormonal mood swings as an excuse to get handsy. At night, he morphed into a walking Calvin Klein ad, seducing me with every glance. The problem? I was a pregnant woman. I could look, but I couldn't touch. Honestly, I felt like I'd set a trap for myself and walked straight into it. Luckily, I had an out-of-town project that required a few days away. I rushed to pack my bags and left with my assistant. Of course, Johnson tried to follow me. So I had to put him back in his place. I'm going to meet the baby's father, I said over the phone. What's the point of you tagging along? He had no response. Second ML, wait, am I the mistress now? The poor assistant got yelled at again. Still hasn't figured out who the baby's dad is. Bro, are you part of their bedroom play too? Justice for assistants. Honestly, he deserves a raise after all this. I can't wait to see his face when the memories come flooding back. At the last checkup, the doctor said things looked promising. If things went smoothly, his memory might return in a few months. It was probably time. Still, I kind of wasn't ready to give up this Johnson yet. Because honestly, memoryless Johnson was painfully adorable. Once he remembered everything, I had a feeling he'd be so ashamed, he'd lock himself in his room for a month. Just as that thought crossed my mind, someone appeared in front of me. Natalie. Let's talk. It was Matthew, whom I hadn't seen in ages. This wasn't a coincidence. I had just wrapped up a meeting with a client, and he showed up right after. Clearly, he'd been watching me. He had been trying to contact me before too. Luckily, I dodged him every time thanks to the bullet comments. But now, after all this time, he still hadn't accepted reality. Matthew, whatever we had ended 3 years ago. What's there left to talk about? His eyes locked on mine, filled with unwavering certainty. Nicholas overheard you and Johnson at the club that day. Natalie, your marriage is just a business arrangement, right? There's no real emotion. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. Matthew paused, a flicker of hope flashing in his eyes. You still have feelings for me, don't you? Wow. Just, wow. Where does this cheating ex get all that confidence? From the mistress, clearly. He blamed her for his affair, ruined her reputation, and she still gave birth to his kid. Do not overinflate the price of pigs. Matthew, people laugh at you. But you? You're the funniest of them all. We've formed the Matthew fan club. We'll be out on Highway 9 at midnight with tips. Don't be late. Thanks to the comments, I nearly laughed out loud. Matthew noticed my reaction and took it the wrong way. He actually looked relieved. It's okay, he said gently. No matter whose child you're carrying, I'll raise them as my own. Natalie, divorce Johnson. Let's leave the country. I'll love you forever. Right as the words left his mouth, a shrill voice screamed behind him. What about our child? Matthew's expression changed instantly. He stood up. Ella? You followed me. Ella's already fragile frame trembled violently. She's already married, and you still can't let her go. Then what does that make our child? Matthew's voice turned cold. You chose to have that baby. It's not my responsibility. Her tears fell the moment he said that. Ella looks unstable. FL, please stay far, far away. She slashed her wrists, jumped in rivers, just to win him back. Dangerous woman. This girl is 1 foot away from a court order. She hates the FL. Who knows what she'll do next? And right on cue, Ella grabbed a glass vase from the table and hurled it at me. If you're so scared, why don't you just die already? I'd always known she was unhinged. The moment she charged forward, I shoved Matthew in her path. Instinctively, he shielded me. The vase shattered against his temple, glass slicing his skin open. Blood began to drip down his face. Matthew stared at me in disbelief. Natalie. Why should I be dragged into your mess? I stood protectively in front of my belly, ice cold. If anything happens to my child, neither of you will get off easy. The cafe staff had seen everything and called the police. Matthew and Ella were both taken away. After that, I headed to the hospital for a checkup, just in case. Johnson arrived not long after, and I was genuinely surprised. You came? He didn't answer. Instead, he immediately turned to the doctor and asked about my condition, his expression grim. Only after confirming that the baby and I were both fine did he exhale. That was when I noticed just how awful he looked. His face was pale, drawn tight with leftover fear. Where is he? I blinked. Who? He took a deep breath. Didn't you come here to see him? So when you were in danger, where was he? When you went to the hospital, where was he? His jaw clenched so tightly the veins on his arms bulged. Clearly, he was done playing nice with this so-called baby daddy. I hesitated for a beat. Actually, he was there. Johnson stared at me, his voice laced with sarcasm. Doesn't matter what excuses you make. He's irresponsible. End of story. Damn. He's dragging himself now. Second ML is seizing every opportunity to tear down the rival. Wait till he remembers his main account password, this is gonna get wild. I decided to let him save a little face. Don't talk about him like that. Johnson's eyes darkened. Tell me. What is it about him that makes you keep defending him? I lifted my gaze. He loves me. I love you too, he said quietly. I've loved you for a long time. Silence spread between us. Then, as if realizing what he'd just admitted, he shut his eyes and lowered his voice even more. Does it have to be him? My heart skipped a beat. I feigned calm. Since when did you like me? High school. His dark eyes reflected the faint outline of my face. You probably don't remember, but it was pouring that day. I went to 5 flower shops looking for Stardust lilies. None of them had it. When I finally reached the one in the south part of the city, they had a wrapped bouquet ready. But the owner said someone had already reserved it. I turned to leave, but then she called me back and said the buyer changed their mind. And offered me a discount. He paused, lips tugging slightly. I knew it wasn't a coincidence. You gave it up for me. I saw you. You were in the shop picking flowers. My thoughts scattered. Following his story, a memory surfaced. That flower shop was owned by my cousin. She knew I loved Stardust lilies, so she'd always reserve a bunch for me every week. That day, I remember seeing a boy, drenched, quietly asking if they had that flower. He wore a hat, his face obscured. But for someone to brave a storm like that, he had to be desperate. So I told my cousin to give it to him. That boy was Johnson. No. There had been signs. Last year, when our relationship was starting to warm up, Johnson brought me to visit a cemetery. He said Stardust lilies had been his mother's favorite flower. Now that I thought about it, the day we ran into each other at the flower shop was the anniversary of her death. I looked at him, a dull ache rising in my chest. Johnson smiled faintly. You were the school star. Everyone liked you. I was just the least remarkable among them. I didn't want to bother you. I just wanted to find a chance to thank you. But the more I noticed you, the deeper I fell. By the time I realized it, I couldn't stop. Vague, forgotten memories began to resurface. There was a basketball game once. As class monitor, I had to get bottled water for the team. I was supposed to use a trolley, but the shopkeeper told me someone had just taken the last one. I was about to call for help, when Johnson appeared in his jersey. Sweaty and flushed from the game. I'll help you, he said. Before I could respond, He'd already called a few classmates to help carry everything over. And that wasn't the only time. Another time during a volleyball practice, I ran into him at the equipment room. He quietly wheeled out the entire rack of volleyballs for me. I always thought he was just being helpful, lending a hand. But now I knew, he was thanking me. Oh my God. The day has come. Second ML finally learned how to speak. So soft. So precious. Team Second ML for the win. Replace the X. He is the main lead now. The FL picks, that's what defines the story. Then I support him kicking the baby daddy out and taking the throne. Baby daddy might not like that. Too late. They're the same person. After his confession, Johnson didn't dare meet my eyes. When I stayed quiet for a long time, he tried his best to keep a straight face. You don't have to feel pressured by anything I said. I replied softly, well, there's no way I'm giving up on the baby's father. I love him. Johnson's jaw tightened. His eyes darkened with shadow. All right. But, I added, voice lighter. Before he could process it, I cupped his face and kissed him. Like muscle memory, his hands instinctively found my waist. After a moment of hesitation, he deepened the kiss. It was intense. Fierce. Unapologetic. When we finally pulled apart to catch our breath, I smiled at him. We can have an affair behind the baby daddy's back. His hands tightened on my waist. I frowned slightly. You don't want to? Johnson's gaze dimmed, layered with complicated emotions. He stared at me for what felt like forever, then let out a low laugh. Sure. Back home, Johnson was already changing clothes. You're awfully proactive tonight, I commented. His face remained expressionless. As someone's secret lover, I figured I'd better brush up on some exciting new tricks. Wouldn't want you getting bored. Wasting this man on the gentle second ML role is a crime. He looks like a gentleman, but deep down he's clearly made of sin. If only men in movies acted like this. Everyone stay hydrated. I know it's hard, but that's an order. Their combined horniness level is terrifying. It surpasses mine. Tell us something we don't know already. I grabbed a fistful of his hair, gasping for air. Tea today, let's stop here. Johnson was kneeling in front of me, his tailored trousers perfectly outlining every sculpted muscle. He looked up, eyes shadowed and gleaming. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed, lips glistening. Didn't you ask me to tease you? He murmured. We're not done yet. Just hold on a little longer. He grabbed my ankle, stopping me from escaping. By the end, I was trembling all over, tears slipping from the corners of my eyes. Half conscious, I couldn't shake off one unsettling thought. Something about the way he touched me felt too familiar. Like muscle memory. Like instinct. It wasn't until I woke up the next morning that the haze in my head finally cleared. And I realized. Only the Johnson who hadn't lost his memory would know how to kiss me like that. That's why he could so effortlessly ignite my desire. I turned to look at him. For once, he was still asleep. I leaned in and whispered softly near his ear, honey. He didn't open his eyes. But reflexively, he pulled me into his arms. And placed a kiss on my forehead. The seamlessness of it. So smooth, so practiced, was undeniable. I grit my teeth and pinched his waist. Hard. Johnson winced, brows furrowing, eyes still groggy. What's wrong, baby? So he had regained his memory. I sneered. Pretending to have amnesia, is that your idea of fun? Johnson didn't even try to deny it. He stretched lazily, one brow lifting. Well, you wanted to play. I was just cooperating. That lover from last night, did he not satisfy you? I went a little red. To stop him from dragging out the past, I got up and began to dress. Before heading out, I flashed him a smile over my shoulder. You know, baby daddy. I actually prefer my lover. He's got so many tricks up his sleeve. Johnson. Very few people knew Johnson had lost his memory. His assistant was one of them. After Johnson recovered, the assistant gave him a hesitant glance. President Price, should I continue looking into Madam's lover? Johnson replied coolly, no need. Her lover is me. Assistant. Well, at least the assistant got double his year-end bonus. So it wasn't a total loss. As for Matthew and Ella? Not so lucky. Matthew refused to settle out of court, so Ella got 2 weeks in detention. Then, in a spiral of hopeless rage, she drove into him. Broke one of his legs clean. Matthew was forcibly sent overseas for treatment. Chances are, he'll never come back. Life returned to peace. And the bullet comments vanished, too. For a long while. Until, 1 year later, Johnson handed our sleeping baby to the nanny, then drove me up the mountain to a private villa. The top floor held a smart glass bedroom, controlled by voice and light. I glanced at the big, soft bed in the center. Another kink. Ever since I gave birth, Johnson had been coming up with all kinds of new techniques. To prove he was way better than that so-called lover. In the heat of passion, he'd always whisper, "Tell me. Who's better?" With my eyes unfocused and brain mush, I could only coax him, "Why you are." Even though they were the same person, I still didn't know why he was so obsessed. Tonight, I finally understood. He pressed a switch. The smart glass walls turned transparent. I froze. Outside the windows was an entire sea of stardust lilies, glowing in the summer night breeze, stretching as far as the eye could see. We were right in the center of it. "I'd started preparing this surprise just days before the accident," he said. "Guess it took us a while to get here. I never gave you a proper confession. But now, better late than never, right?" My eyes stung. "If you liked me so much, why didn't you say it earlier? You're really that into secret crushes?" Johnson didn't respond. Instead, he tilted his head, looking at me with rare vulnerability. "Wasn't it you who said you didn't want any feelings in a marriage?" Before I first met Johnson, my mom told me he seemed genuine, maybe even liked me. But I'd just crawled out of a relationship that left a bad taste in my mouth. Romance was the last thing I wanted. So I said, why would I fall in love with someone in an arranged marriage? If he liked me, I'd never agree to marry him. Apparently, he'd overheard that conversation. So Johnson played along, proposing an emotionless arrangement. That's how our story began. Now, we looked at each other and couldn't help laughing softly. Fate really is a funny thing. The moonlight was clear and gentle. A soft breeze carried the faint scent of lilies. I leaned against Johnson's shoulder and heard him whisper, "Natalie, I love you." "Johnson, I love you too." The bullet comments, long gone, returned in full force. Let's give a round of applause to our reunited lovers. Wow, I totally didn't see this coming. What a twist. Finally. The second male lead has officially become the male lead. They're an old married couple and still manage to be romantic. Iconic. Even though you always black out the screen during the good parts, I still wish you a lifetime of happiness. Fireworks exploded across the screen. The bullet comments way of sending blessings. The words slowly faded. I waved at the sky as a quiet farewell. Johnson gave me a look. "What are you doing?" I kissed him gently. "Just thinking, the stars are beautiful tonight." He scooped me up and carried me toward the bed. "Then let's look at them another time. Right now, we need to rest." "You'd better actually rest." The sky began to lighten. I bit down hard on his shoulder. "Can we please stop now?" Johnson laughed, voice raspy with satisfaction. "You've seen the stars. Might as well catch the sunrise too." I should have never trusted him.